You then proceed about the issue of logical precedence, and you make the statement: if logical precedence does not exist, or did not exist, then my argument would shatter. Yes, that is very true. Your argument does shatter, because logical precedent does not exist. Now, you then make a big issue out of the fact that I didn't spend an awful lot of time expanding on this. To be perfectly honest with you, I didn't think I would have to, because it is a very well-known logical equivalence. A implies B is logically equivalent to not A or B. And it is, of course, symmetrical. That one of them is called not A and the other one is called B in the OR statement is really not really that relevant. I'll get to that. Because what I'm going to do, because you made a point out of that, is I'm going to explain to you how it works. Now, I'm going to take a bit of paper and I'm going to write it down for you. Now, I'm going to use some notations that you mightn't be familiar with, but I would think they're fairly self-explanatory, so please bear with me. Now, okay, here we are. Let's start with a logical with the implication. A implies B. That is our starting assumption. Now then, let's look at two different possibilities. First possibility is that A is true, in which case we conclude B is true. Yeah? The second possibility is that not A is true, in which case, because A implies B, we cannot conclude anything about B. You need to understand that. Now, what I've written down here, this bit here, is a pretty straightforward logical tautology. It's the one that says A or not A. For any statement A, it's a logical tautology to say that either A is true or not A is true, or rather that this statement A or not A is true. However, in the case of A, we know that B is a necessary implication. So this is actually the same as saying B or not A. And of course, because the or statement is commutative, that's the same as not A or B. So everything in this line, beside this line, follows from this premise. So that means that the premise A implies B implies not A or B. Let's work this the other way around. Let's assume not A or B for starters. Well, if we assume statement A within the context of this, then of course, because it's not A or B, and this first part is not true, that has to be true. So B is then true. And that then means that A implies B. So we've now proven that not A or B implies that A implies B. But now we've seen that A implies B implies not A or B, not A or B implies A implies B, and if that is true, then the two are equivalent. The other point you make is about symmetry, and you're saying it's not symmetry because in one case there's a not A and in the other case there's a B. But, you know, let's just make that simpler then. Let's start with the premise not A implies B. Now again, this is what you would see as logical precedence. where the negation of one statement implies that another statement must be true. Okay? Again, according to the same equivalence here, that is equivalent to not A or B, and that is of course equivalent to A or B. And that, surely you'll agree, does look symmetrical, doesn't it? A or B, which is the same as B or A. And as you can see, there's no precedence of one over the other. So I'm sorry to disappoint you, and I'm sorry that you feel that your whole theology hinges on this. But if it does, then you will have to accept that it is fatally flawed. It is dead in the water. You said yourself, if logical precedence did not exist, then my argument would shatter. Logical precedence does not exist.